Hey boys and girls, welcome back to my virtual art room. It's me, Miss Summers, and I have a read aloud for us today, and this is actually one of my favorite children's books. It's Mimi's Dada Catifesto, a Catifesto. So the Dada art movement is an art movement that if you've had me in class before, you know that I love. And it's all about things that are silly and nonsensical, right? All about nonsense. And a manifesto is when you write usually a pretty long page about something that you really believe in, right? So a manifesto is writing about things you really strongly believe in. And this is a cat-ifesto because it's not a man writing it, right? It's our friend Mimi, the cat, writing her cat-ifesto about the Dada art movement. So it's a really silly book. There's a good bit of art history in here too. I love it. I hope that you enjoy it as well. All right, so we're gonna start reading Mimi's Dada Catifesto by Shelly Jackson. My story about me by Mimi. I am not writing this book to get famous, but to give you some tips on living. Listen, kiddo. Sometimes you stare at a black dot for an hour and nothing happens. But sometimes it gets up and walks across the floor. I like bugs. What I'm trying to say is, pay attention and expect the best. Mimi's Dada Catifesto. Or how I became a genius and got a bowl of milk too. Or how I taught that pigeon something about art. Or have you misplaced your mustachios, madam? So what's a cockroach-ifesto? Do you know who I am? I am Mimi. This is no cat suit. This is the real thing. You may be surprised to hear that I was once a poor alley cat. I lived in a hat that blew off a rich man's head. I was lucky he had a big head. 2 young married cockroaches lived in the brim. Often I lay awake hungry and listened to them blaming each other for being poor. What's the use of that? There are many cats in Zurich and many artists, but few artistic cats. The others laughed at me. Get a human, they meowed. It's easy. 1, purr. 2, look cute. 3, don't wash your behind while they're watching. That's all humans want from us cats. Well, that's not enough for Mimi. My only friend was a cynical old pigeon, Laszlo. Humans have fireplaces, milk, and laps. Think about it, he said. Humans? Noisy things who can't even lick their own toes, I sneered. Do I look like a cat who comes running to whoever coos kitty kitty? For a cat with the soul of an artist, only an artist will do. Of course, a bowl of milk every once in a while would be nice. One day I was slinking and strutting down a dark and crooked street, looking for something to eat. A small door stood open. Out of it came yells, bangs, thumps, and a thought-provoking smell. The smell was strange, yet achingly familiar. Above all, it was yummy. Obviously, I went in. At the end of the room was a stage. On the stage was a piano, and on the piano was a man with a pointy beard. and a coat made of paper. He had a fish on top of his head. The fish smelled delish. The man had taste, and he could sing almost as well as a cat. Wah, gaga, umba, umba, pee! The fish flopped this way and that. It seemed to be smiling right at me, kiddo. It was a splendid performance. The crowd threw gifts of food at the man, chicken bones, tomatoes, eggs, which made beautiful patterns on his coat. Art, the man cried, pulling a drumstick out of his sleeve, is anything. Umbrellas, bow ties, false teeth. Only art that doesn't look like art is art. Ga, ga, umba, umba, poo. At this, the crowd threw so many gifts that the artist had to hide under the piano. I stretched my back in a bow. I was very moved. When I sat up, the fish was alone in the spotlight. How beautiful. I grabbed it and ran down the dark street, to the top of a fence, up a flight of stairs, and down a pile of cobblestones, over the roof of an old shed, to my hat. Laszlo! Laszlo! I cried. A shoe flew out of the window. Such marvels often happen to cats like me. I have a very large collection of shoes. Laszlo thumped down beside me. Must you make that noise? He asked. Nice fish. I stretched out a trembling paw. The fish, I said, is nothing. I, Mimi, have found my artist. Oh yeah? Said Laszlo, cleaning between his toes. Is he a cubist, a futurist, or an expressionist? Does he paint guitars, airplanes, or people? Only art that does not look like art is art, I said. Ah, he is a Dadaist, said Laszlo. Poor Mimi, that bowl of milk looks very far away. Milk? Ha, I sniffed. We will live for beauty, Mr. Dada and I. The cockroaches. But what is Dada? The cockroaches wanted to know. What is 7 plus windmill? What is yellow minus whale? Mimi is available to answer questions yesterday and tomorrow only. At the next show, Mr. Dada held up an ice cube. Here is my latest sculpture, he said. It is called Mr. Lamp Has Lost His Pudding Clock. The ice cube melted. The crowd roared. Mr. Dada wiped his hand on his beard and left. I followed. I like to be yelled at, he said to a man dressed as a lobster. It means I've gotten on someone's nerves, and that's just what an artist should do. Dada is like a hiccup. It doesn't hurt, but it makes you look silly. And if you try to make it go away, you look even sillier. I threw myself at his feet. When Mimi knows what she wants, she does not hesitate. Cute little thing, said the lobster. What is Mimi? 1, a hiccup. 2, a bad dog. 3, a runaway wig. 4, hello. 5, the queen of shoes. 6, who wants to know? I think the answer is 37. There is no 37. Exactly. Cats, fuzzy things that nap too much, sneered Mr. Dada. Any pet of mine must be large, ill-tempered, and ridiculous. For the artist of today, only a rhinoceros or a bank manager will do. Do I look like the kind of man to coo kitty kitty? When Mr. Dada calls, an ostrich appears, or a fire engine. I will perform for him, I decided. When he sees that I am a Dadaist too, he will take me in. I curled my tail around my legs and looked up at the sky for inspiration. After a minute, I began to sing. Wow! What is that awful noise? Asked Laszlo. Don't bother me, Pigeon. I'm working, I said. It's a sound poem. It's not very pretty, said Laszlo. It's not supposed to be pretty. It's mysterious and awe-inspiring. It doesn't mean anything, said Laszlo. It's not supposed to mean anything. It's a sound poem. You're just supposed to listen to it. No, thank you, said Laszlo, flapping away. Under the moon, from the top of the fence, outside Mr. Dada's window, I delivered my poem. Wow! Roar! Ooh! Psst! Eeks! Mr. Dada opened his window. I made up a few new lines on the spot. They were not quite as good, but I delivered them with feeling. Me? Me? Meow! Shoo! Said Mr. Dada, and that is exactly what he gave me. Another shoe for my collection. How were the reviews? Asked Laszlo. Encouraging, I said. He threw a shoe. Ah, said Laszlo. It was a nice gesture, I said, but he should have been more careful. Didn't you duck? That's the problem, I replied. The shoe went through a window next door. I don't think his neighbor appreciates Dada. Neighbor, you are a stupendous nuisance, a primitive force of destruction, a steam-powered industrial strength moron. What's more, you are insane. Mr. Dada, thank you. I decided to have an art show in front of Mr. Dada's house. Mimi's gallery. A hairball. A dead bug. Another live bug. Well, dead now. Sorry, exhibit closed. An enigmatic leaf. False teeth. A painting by Laszlo. Pigeon foot with crumb. Mimi, said Laszlo, you didn't even make these yourself, except for the hairball. Laszlo, don't you know anything? These are called ready-mades because they are already made. They are art because I say so. Look at that crumb. That's art too. Your best work, said Laszlo, and he ate it. Your ears are drooping, said Laszlo. Was the show a flop? Laszlo, Mr. Dada swept up my ready-mades and threw them away. In his art gallery, he puts a toothpick on a pedestal, but when I show him my best hairball, he mistakes it for trash. Mimi, said Laszlo, you're a silly little mammal. You're going about this all wrong. Just sit on his stoop and look fluffy. Make like a pet. Even a Dadaist doesn't want a Dada cat. To make matters worse, Mr. and Mrs. Cockroach were about to have children, 20 or 30 of them. They wanted to know if I would vacate the premises. Get out, in other words. They were afraid an artist would be a bad influence on the little ones. I was discouraged. prayed to the moon for luck. Luck deluxe! The window was open, and Mr. Dada was out on the town. There was a small fish in the kitchen, and I was hungry. I confess I was tempted, but there are more important things than eating. I went to work. Dear Mr. Dada, I have ripped up your diary and used your words to write this poem. I have spilled the peas that were in the glass bowl and which you were probably saving for dinner. Forgive me, they were magical, so smooth and so round. You will find most of them eventually. I've turned your sweater back into yarn. Can you find the end? And guess what I have left in your typewriter? I'm an artist, a poet, and musical too. I'm Mimi, the Dada cat, and I'm the cat for you. What a big mess. When Mr. Dada came home, he walked right into my poem, and his feet mixed it up a little. Now it said, Dear Mr. Peas, typewriter, dinner, the, probably now. It was even better than before, but I don't think he understood it. Mr. Dada flung open his window. Will no one rid me of this infernal cat? He cried. The neighbor opened his new window and stuck out his head. Now what are you yelling about? That cat, said Mr. Dada, is a stupendous nuisance, a primitive force of destruction, a steam-powered industrial strength. He stopped. Where have I heard that before? I balanced the fish on my head and made my best entrance. The Dadas looked at me. Oh, he said. At last you understand, said the neighbor. My windows are safe. At last I understand, said Mr. Dada. I have met my equal. Together we will create the world's most astonishing mess, yelled the neighbor, and slammed his window shut. But we were not really listening. I, Mimi, had found my human, and at last my human had found me. A few weeks later, I was daydreaming over a bowl of milk when Laszlo crash-landed beside me. I was so pleased to see him, I got hiccups. You're getting fat, he said. Hiccup! Don't hiccup me, I purred. I'm thinking about cookies and kangaroos, the squash and the squid, and all the little cockroaches playing in my hat. Hiccup! I'm so happy. If I were a dress, I'd have ruffles. You're not turning up your nose at a bowl of milk now. What about art? I sniffed. Don't you understand, pigeon? A bowl of milk is art. Is art. And you are art, even though you look like a feather duster. Maybe especially because you look like a feather duster. Art can be anything. Ga, ga, umba, umba, poo. The end. Yeah. So, here's some illustrations of some different famous Dada artists. They're all a silly group. I hope that you enjoyed this book. I know I certainly enjoyed it, right? A lot of the illustrations in the book are similar to famous Dada works of art. And again, Dada is a movement that's all about things being random and left up to chance and silliness and nonsense, which makes for a very silly story. So I hope that you all enjoyed that, and I'll see you next time. Bye, friends!